Again, I'm Enrico Gelain, and so welcome again to this second part of the Cambodia ancient temples live speech.
Yes, that's right. So tonight we are going to travel again into ancient Cambodia, a king of wonders.
Kingdom of Wonders.
A kingdom, sorry, a kingdom of wonders. Yes, that's what I wanted to say. A kingdom of wonders and a place that Enrico and I know very well because we've been there 3 times altogether, researching, studying, exploring, and feeling the ancient places of Cambodia. A country that really is worth seeing. So, what are we going to see today? But first of all, of course, we want to check if anybody is watching and if you can hear well, because we would like to know if the connection is fine. And
because here it's raining now in Sardinia, very strange thing.
yeah.
So probably the connection can be unstable, but if you can hear well, we're okay. So we'll go on with the speech.
Yes, of course. So, Enrico, maybe we can, okay, Leslie Clark, good evening to you both.
Okay.
Hi, Leslie. We're
Hi.
very, very happy to see you back here on this program. And so, hope you're all right and happy to see you. Right, so maybe we can start while we are waiting, maybe for other people to join us, just in a short while to revise a little bit what we went through last time. Yes.
Of course. Well, Cambodia is a very nice and small Asian country in the Southeast Asia, and it is home of a very ancient civilization, which started on the first century BC. It started to develop and to learn about the sacred science of India, thanks to all the communication channels and commerce it had with India. And so India taught Cambodia and different part of Southeast Asia all the sacred spiritual knowledge about Hinduism, about Buddhism, and also Tantra derivations, and different a multitude of cults actually that India possessed at those times.
And we also have to underline that from India derived the ancient knowledge of Vastu. And Vastu is a way to build sacred places, because in ancient days sacred places were built with very special and very precise criteria. And so India was home of this kind of knowledge, the knowledge that was called actually Vastu, and it was a way to build the sacred architecture. Probably this knowledge actually comes from a very, very old time. It really seems that it predates our historical time, and the roots were to be found in Atlantis, the mythical Atlantis. But from some scripts that were found in Egypt, actually in the temple of Edfu, we know that this ancient knowledge of building sacred architecture had its roots in Atlantis, because it really seems, it is reported in these rolls actually found in these hieroglyphs found in Edfu, that the people who survived the flood of Atlantis, and so the destruction of Atlantis, actually traveled to many different places looking for new places of sacred lands in order to build a new civilizations, without forgetting what was the old knowledge, the knowledge that they knew. And one of the things that they knew very well was how to build sacred sites that were always chosen very carefully. So the ancient knowledge coming from India probably has these very, very ancient roots.
Yeah, it is a very complicated geometry, really built in a mandala-like scheme, a mandala-like plan, and it is like there are different enclosures, one inside the other, and with the typical structure of Cambodia, they will build a pyramid, a kind of pyramid. Some temples were really pyramid, so with like a steeped pyramid, step pyramid, and so you would really climb up those temples. And we have other temples which are less steepy, but always with enclosures, one inside the other. And the central part, as you can see on this picture now, this is Angkor Wat, the biggest temple in the world.
You also will have the most famous one, yes,
of Cambodia, yes, of course. And you can see there's a kind of step pyramid shape. From above,
yes,
you can see this picture. This is a reconstruction on about how Angkor Wat was. It is very complicated. You can see the fractal geometry. Not only the bigger temple is with different enclosures. This temple has 4 enclosures. But also you can see on the towers, again, a fractal geometry. One geometry inside the other, inside the other, inside the other, and every time the geometry gets smaller and closer to the sky, making really very powerful antennas.
Yes, and energetically speaking, you get different levels of vibrations. And when you start walking and you enter the first enclosure, for example, the energy is slightly below the average that we need, the average of our body, when our body, and here I'm talking about both the subtle and our dense body, are in harmony, are healthy. And so in this way, when you reach the first enclosure, you have the opportunity to release all your density in order to cleanse yourself before reaching the other enclosures that get higher and higher while you walk. In this way, having these different steps, you really had like a sort of process reaching different levels of energy, getting higher and higher. So first cleansing, and then while entering one after the other, entering the other enclosures, you would get a higher frequency. Of course, we know that right in the center, where we get the highest vibration, that space, that sacred space, was not for everybody, but just for the high priests and the king of the kingdom of Cambodia. So there you really get a very, very strong energy. And in those days, everything was actually it was really connected to a sort of initiation, and so only the people who were really in charge of the spiritual side of life could actually reach the very center of the temple.
Also, inside this sacred geometry, we have a very peculiar pattern. As you can see, the towers are really very sophisticated. They have a lot of details. These were not made in a casual way, because it was made through a process of geometrical movement. So every tower was meant to be moving itself, actually. Of course, the temple is static, but the intention of the builders of these towers were to make this geometry move. So if you take, for example, a square, which is a static symbol, simple geometry, and you make this square turn around by, let's say, 15 degrees each, this turning of the square will make many stars. So you turn a square first like this, then like this, then like this, then like this. And of course, this was a mathematical process, because the base geometry was decided upon the reference about the divinity. If you have to do a temple about a divinity linked to a square, you use a square as a base geometry. If you make a temple about some other divinity which is linked to another geometry, you can, or another number, you will use a geometry linked to the number of the divinity you are building the temple. And by moving the square, you will have a star. And as you can see on the tower, there are different stars, different arrows, which are made exactly by this square moved in a mathematical process. So you had to decide how many degrees you should move the square and how many times you should move the square. These kind of mathematical decisions were all linked at the divinity or the meaning the temple was about to convey. So every calculation was really decided in a very meticulous way.
Yeah.
Also, the base measurement of this temple are linked to the 4 eras of Hinduism. The famous Kali Yuga, the four yugas. Now we are living in the 4th yuga, the 4th era, which is Kali Yuga. If you measure the distances inside the enclosure, you can see, using the, of course, the cubic measurement the Khmer Empire was using, you will see the numbers are precisely represented the 4 yugas.
Yeah, everything is so precise. And what is really amazing about it is that they really knew how to make a building vibrant. This was very important according to these criteria for building sacred monuments, monuments devoted to our spiritual life, our spiritual essence. They had to be vibrant, like in the same way the universe is vibrant. Everything is energy, and everything vibrates at different frequencies and rates, but everything vibrates. And people in those days, especially when we think that probably this knowledge comes from such an old knowledge that was very much advanced, the knowledge of Atlantis, we have to think that they knew that everything is energy and everything vibrates. And so they wanted to convey this message in a very clear way inside these sacred temples, so that when you get there and you walk in there, you really feel something moving within you. You feel there is a sort of presence of supernatural presence, something that really connects us to the whole of creation and the whole of the universe.
In fact, these temples were meant to be recreation of the whole universe in a symbolist way, so that the central tower was representing Mount Meru, which is the house of the gods and the center of Hinduist the Hinduist creation, and also it was the axis mundi, the center of the whole universe.
Yeah.
So actually it was where Vishnu began to build the universe.
Yes.
So that's the exact center of the temple, and all the enclosures were representing the mountain ranges around Mount Meru, and the water channel you saw around the temple was meant to represent the cosmic, the sea of milk, which is the cosmic sea where everything began, because in the Hinduism myth of creation, everything began with an enormous, infinite sea of milk, and from the center of the universe, Mount Meru, then the land began to develop thanks to the efforts of the Vishnu god.
Of course, the surrounding waters, energetically speaking, enhance the energy of the place itself, that was chosen very carefully, of course. It also had more practical meaning, but there is also an energetical meaning behind it. And all the towers are actually connected, and they resonate in such a way that you get this powerful energy once you are inside the temple.
Here there's a peculiar mystery about Angkor Wat that many people don't know about. This is a geological scan made from an helicopter, and they found a mysterious set of manipulation of the land. And the red lines are modern pattern, like a road and something else, but as you can see, there are kind of glyphs or geoglyphs, like the Nazca lines.
Yeah, very peculiar, really surprising.
Yeah, nobody knows about it, but almost nobody,
Yes.
because it's a very recent discovery made in the 2016. And actually, even archaeologists didn't know what are they for, what they stand for, what are their meaning. And this is the plot. As you can see, you have the very big temple on the upper part of this figure, and in red, all these strange patterns.
Yeah.
Probably it was meant to be something like, as for us, as for the researches we have done with the dowsing technique, intuition technique, it could have been something like for protection of the whole monument.
Yeah, when we travel and go to see sacred places or places of energy, we always use the technique of dowsing, which is again a very, very ancient technique, and it's a way to feel and measure the energies of a place. So we use usually a dowsing rod or a pendulum, and through those tools we can actually perceive the intensity of the energy and also ask questions related to what we are actually researching.
Connecting to the ancient memories of the temple.
Yeah, that's right.
We are speaking about something like a 2 kilometers side of these geoglyphs. So nobody knew about it because even when you are there, you cannot see that. You really need to see them from above.
So there are still things to be actually researched and found in Cambodia. Here we have another view.
Yeah, this is the reconstruction of Angkor Wat with the geoglyph on the top part of the picture, and the water surrounding the temple. As you can see, it was very, very big.
Yeah, it's really always surprising how they built things and the symbolism that they managed to put inside, and this deep knowledge of energies. Everything was really made in such a precise way. It's just marvelous.
So this was the part about Vishnu. We talked about the divinity Shiva on the last of the previous
episode. Let's say. Yes.
Yeah, we talked about Shiva and Vishnu. Now we will see about the Buddha. Buddhism came really in the last period of the Khmer Empire. As I told you, inside the empire there were all the cults together in harmony, but actually the religious state cult, the religion that the Khmer Empire kings were following, were Hinduism until 1180, 1180 AD, and with Jayavarman VII, the state cult changed. He was a Buddhist, and so he decided to convert all the previous temples, almost all the previous temple, in a Buddhist style. But he was actually, as a Buddhist, he was very harmonious and pacific, so decided to keep many statues about Buddhism, and he decided to let people continue to practice Hinduism. And so many of the earlier temples were converted in Buddhist temples, but without touching, without damaging the statues, leaving all the bas reliefs as they were, and just adding some Buddha statues. And he also started to build many other completely new Buddhist temples.
Yes, he was a very enlightened king, we have to say. And he is still considered a very high spiritual figure, and almost like a god. He is still worshipped by the people of Cambodia. He was really very much enlightened.
Actually, at those time, each and every king was worshipped as a king and as a god. In fact, like in Egypt, it was a very important divinity cult about the kings. The king was meant to receive was allowed to administer the state directly from the god. And so many times the name of the king was connected to the divinity he was
expressing somehow, yes.
So many times you have inside the name of the king the divinity. And so of course Buddha is connected to compassion, and we'll see some of these temples. This is a completely new city he built because Jayavarman VII had to reconquer Cambodia, which was invaded by the Thailand people. And to protect its kingdom, he decided to rebuild another city, and this is the entrance of the city, which of course is much more bigger than the temple itself. So we are speaking about kilometers and square kilometers. The enclosure was very high, had very high walls, and an even bigger water channel around it. And it was meant to represent again Mount Meru, the whole of the creation. And these bridges were meant to represent the rainbow bridges connecting the different levels of the creation. In Hinduism, we have something like 33 different dimensions, both lower, earthly, and heaven levels. And the statues were meant to represent these bridges connecting the different levels. Also, there's another symbolism. We already spoke about it in the previous episode, speaking about the churning of the Sea of Milk, which is the Hinduism creation myth. And here you can see it. There are demons and gods on each side of the bridges, pulling and pushing and pulling, like in a game of rope, a very giant mythological snake, making the Mount Meru turn to allow the creation to pop up from the sea of milk. The whole process was administered with Vishnu at the center. And of course, as you can see, in the portal, the main portal, there are 5 main portals of the city. One for each of the 4 cardinal points, and each portal, each gate, had 4 Buddha figures transmitting, conveying the word of the Buddha through the air and along the 4 different cardinal points. So the intention was to transmit, to convey compassion all around the city temples and all around Cambodia.
Yeah. Again, we see how the plan was really very precise, very precise. It's beautiful.
These are the walls. And we have a Garuda. I can't remember exactly the distance, but they made the enclosure in a way to build 72 Garudas. Garuda is a mythological creature which is so strong, so powerful, it can defend from the evil sources of magic, evil creatures. It's half Aquila?
An eagle?
Half an eagle and half a human, and with his claws, he can really kill evil creatures.
And the numbers were never just
casual,
casual, but
72 is connected
to the procession.
Yeah,
to the procession. So again, it's a number connected to the cosmos. And so again, we see that their intention was to build a sacred place within the cosmos. It had to be part of the cosmos. And this was something that some of the most sophisticated cultures and civilizations of the past were referring to. Was so important to be really connected with the cosmos. So 72 is connected to the precession of the equinox.
Yeah, it's a degree you can find during along the movement of the axis of our planet. Meanwhile, he moves. Here you have a representation on a plan of the city. As you can see, this is Angkor Wat, and this is the sacred city he built. Much more bigger.
It's really bigger. Yes, it's a beautiful place. When you it's so nice to go there and walk, just take a walk around this area. It's really like going back into a different dimension, different time, different dimension.
This is one of the smallest temple Jayavarman VII built, but it's, as for me, one of the cutest one.
Yeah, it's very beautiful.
Yeah, very small, still inside the jungle, not so much renowned, so with less tourism, and you can really see the towers with the Buddha faces really in a very close way. You are very close to the tower because the tower is not so high. And actually, Jayavarman the Seventh was connecting himself, referring to a kind of divinity inside Buddhism, which is Avalokiteshvara. Avalokiteshvara is not really a divinity, because in Buddhism you don't have divinities, but you have enlightened people, enlightened souls, which managed, like the Buddha, to go out of the samsara, free themselves from the karmic process of reincarnation, and they decided to continue their reincarnation process to help people. So it's a bodhisattva is really an enlightened soul, which could have actually had freed themselves from every karmic heaviness, but decided to sacrifice himself in order to help people on the world. And so the face, to be more precise, it is said to represent the face of Jayavarman VII, which was connected to Avalokiteshvara. So the meaning is, I have freed myself from all the karmic negative emotions, but I want to continue to sacrifice myself in order for to help others to free themselves. So bodhisattvas are very kind and gentle souls, which are devoted to help each and every person incarnating in our planet to reach nirvana, to reach freedom, to reach enlightenment. This is the center of this small temple.
Yeah, and what we suggest when you visit these temples is at first just to go inside without reading too much about the temple itself, and just let yourself, feel the place and see what happens inside you, what kind of feeling you get. We think it's just so important to have an impression of the place, without using our minds too much, because this was also meant in those days, to enter a place and just feel it. And in this way, you really have a very inner impression, and you can feel what the place has to tell you. You can have an approach that is based more on intuition than on anything else. And it's nice to take time, just to
wander around.
Yeah, to wander around and have a look at all the bas reliefs, which are so beautiful. And yes, have this personal impression of the place.
One detail I want to show you, as you can see here, at the top of the face, you have a tower which is shaped like a lotus flower. So this is another symbol, an intuition symbol, telling you that this is an enlightened person, which all the 7 chakra completely opened, like in a lotus flower when it opens up to the cosmos.
Yeah, the lotus flower has been in different civilizations the representation of consciousness. It was the same with the Egyptians, for example.
These are protective spirits, which you will find everywhere around Cambodia, in all the temples.
You see how beautiful they are, you know. The carvings are marvelous. Yes. What else can you say? It's really beauty, you know, beautiful art.
They are called Devata, and inside the temple symbolisms, those are female spirits, female divinities, lesser divinities, which are wandering around the temple. Because of the fact that the temple is meant to represent the house of the god, they actually represented all the spirits which, according to their legends, were wandering around the house of the gods. And so,
yeah, and if you look carefully at their hands, you can see that they are placed in such a way, like a mudra, you know, so that they also use in their dances. Okay, they used, of course, in their dances, but still nowadays this art of dancing is preserved, and so you can actually go and watch some of the ancient dances with all these mudras. It's beautiful.
A male protector on the left, wielding the sacred sword, and on the right you have a head of a giant snake, which actually has more than one head. All the bas reliefs.
These are actually representing
assets.
Assets, spiritual people, the rishi, people
rishi,
of
exactly.
wisdom. Yes.
And this is the lotus flower, which is at the top of every tower.
Beautiful. And here we have a very special temple, which is really strictly connected with waters, because these waters were used for healing. So this temple had a very precise objective, that was the one of healing people. And so this place was actually a place where you would go in a sort of pilgrimage if you needed healing, and it was the guardians were actually priests that were also like doctors, you know, so they were very much well into ancient medicine. And here, coming from India, medicine again was connected to that culture, and so it was Ayurveda. And Ayurvedic medicine is connected especially with the balance of the 4 elements. And so, of course, air, fire, water, and earth. Yes, and here we have this representation of the 4 elements, plus in the middle you have the combination of the 4 elements, so the 5th element, which is ether. Yes. And Enrico, maybe you can explain the different symbols connected to the different elements.
As we saw earlier here, the temple is inside a small island in a very big lake, and we are working on inside the island now. And you have there was a very nice play of game of water from the ether, which is the biggest central pool. Water will fall to the other four pools through four small chapels which had a carved inside of it. I don't know if I have it, this PowerPoint. Here it is. You have carved these masks, and those masks were pouring water from their mouth.
It's again, it's really wonderful to see these things, you know.
And so from ether, the fifth element, which contains all the energies will divide on the four different elements. So the human chapel is connected to earth, the element of earth. The lion chapel is connected to element of fire. So this is the pool about the fire element. The horse chapel is connected to air, the element air, and the elephant chapel is connected to the water element.
So these priests that were also doctors, how did they perform their healing? First of all, the pilgrim getting to this place in order to be healed had to be had his horoscope done, because through the horoscope we have to underline that in ancient India astrology was very much practiced. It is still today actually, but it was very much practiced in those days as well. So astrology has always been part of the spirituality of India. And so by reading the horoscope of the pilgrim, those doctors could actually see the element that was unbalanced. And so they would choose the pool that the person needed in order to get rebalancing. So if there was an element that was lacking, or maybe an element that was in excess, they would choose the proper pool in order to get the healing, to give healing to the person. If the person, the pilgrim, had a very important problem, then they would always use the pool that was right in the middle, combining all the four elements.
As you can see, there are many steps to go inside the pool. And so probably in ancient times they were using using those pools also for collective rituals.
Yes.
And so many people could come inside the pool simultaneously.
Yes.
To use those pools.
Yeah, and we have to say, of course, that energetically speaking, these waters are very high in vibration. So we are talking here about a vibrational water. So water that is really special. It's not like normal water and has healing powers. And of course, these vibrations were enhanced by the rituals themselves that were practiced within those pools.
The person which was receiving the healing was meant to sit beneath the masks in order to have the most the strongest vibration of that element.
Yeah.
So it was inside the chapel connected to that element.
Yes. Yeah. So you see that there were symbols working together with these very strong vibrations of the waters themselves.
This is the elephant mask, of course, connected to water. And this is the lion mask.
Very beautiful. And you see that still nowadays these places are considered sacred, because you see that all around there are sacred offerings. So they are still considered sacred nowadays. Of course, in a culture that knew that everything vibrates, that everything is energy, water was such an important element. And as we are made of water, water is actually an element that straight away gets in a resonance with our body, both our dense body, our subtle body, and so it is an extraordinary way to get healing. So nowadays we know again through the research and studies of some researchers that water can really have extraordinary healing powers.
This is the plan of the whole site, of the whole island, inside the artificial lake. So just think about how much difficult it could have been to make an island inside a very enormous lake. And as you can see, it is made like a spiral, or archaeologists are defining this mandala like a lotus plan. So at the center you can see the 5 main pools we have told you about. There are other pools. In total they make 13 pools, which are connected to the 13 possible full moon in a year.
So of course it's connected to the cycle of the year and the different vibrations.
And it is also connected to the 12 zodiacal signs. Yeah. So you in these pools you not only can find the 4 element plus the 5th, but you can also find all the 12 zodiacal signs connected to the elements. Yeah. We have 3 zodiacal signs connected to each of the 4 elements.
And of course here you have so the different qualities of the zodiac signs, and as the doctors, those doctors used astrology as a means of diagnosing and of healing, they took care of relating the pilgrim who was going there, relating him to the zodiac sign, you know, he was belonging to. And each zodiac sign has a different quality. And because energy has an intensity, but also has a quality. And this was something that was very, very important to take into account, diagnosing and also giving healing to the pilgrim.
And of course, the diagnosis was made through astrology.
Yeah.
As Arianna was saying.
Yeah, because
so it was a fundamental element.
Yeah.
The vibration of the zodiac.
Yeah, in ancient days, medicine was strictly connected to astrology, to the qualities of the zodiac signs, and each sign was connected to some possible diseases or illnesses. And of course nowadays, if we study astrology and we study this part of astrology, is still the ancient knowledge that we study as astrologers.
So a very complicated symbolism.
Yes.
Here you have the symbolism on the left of the horse, which is a manifestation of a divinity saving the people from the pains of the reincarnation. It is a Buddhism symbolism.
Of course, here we can think that healing was not only considered as being a healing of the body, but it was
a
meant
relief from karmic
also from karmic energies. And of course, in the horoscope you can actually see very well what you take from your past lives, you know, so your karmic path. And it was considered, of course, by those priest doctors. Yeah. So a very wide vision of life. Yeah. So medicine in ancient times was connected to. It was part of the sacredness. You know, it's not like not at all like nowadays, but it was part of sacredness, and so for this reason it was always performed by doctors who were priests and who were very much into astrology, experts of astrology.
As you can see here, you have humans which are drowning because of their karmas, and this horse, manifestation of Vishnu, is saving them, helping them to get through the karmic process and save themselves and enlighten themselves.
So there are so many messages hidden in these temples, so many messages that are so important for our humanity nowadays, you know, for our life nowadays, and for an expansion of our consciousness. There's so much within these temples. That's why we think that it's so important to visit them, and experiencing them is a way really to understand, to get in touch with a very wide vision of humanity and the meaning of human life.
And I don't know if we have time to...
Yeah, we have some more
let's
minutes.
try.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is Taprom, one of the most famous temple in Cambodia. It's a magnificent temple. Archaeologists decided not to touch it, not to restore it too much, and they left all these trees of the jungle that really ate up the temple, making such an incredible mixture of natural energies and sacredness, and human and spiritual principles carved inside the stones. This temple is devoted to Prajnaparamita. Prajnaparamita is a female enlightened soul, an enlightened being, so it is a bodhisattva again. And Prajnaparamita means literally perfection of the wisdom, which is the Buddhist wisdom, which is capable, it is so strong, that is capable to cut all the karmic memories, karmic impure actions you have done in the past. So when you reach the perfection of wisdom, perfection of knowledge, you are totally free. You really reach enlightenment. Of course, this is Mahayana Buddhism school, Mahayana Buddhism principle. Buddhism is divided into two different paths. Mahayana is like very similar of Tibetan Buddhism. Tibetan Buddhism is inside the Mahayana school, and here in Cambodia, Jayavarman VII was following the Mahayana school. Instead, nowadays Cambodia is following Theravada school, which is a different school, which tells us that actually enlightenment cannot be reached by everyone. Mahayana school instead is teaching us that everybody not only can enlighten themselves, but Mahayana school is teaching us that everybody as souls is already enlightened. You just need to remember your soul, remember your connections. Yeah. When you remember things that your soul already knows, you will be completely free of all the karmic actions you have done. Meanwhile, you were forgetting, not knowing, not completely connected to these principles.
Yes. Let's have a look at some other pictures of, but I think we can go on.
This is the entrance.
So beautiful with all these big trees. Yeah.
When you walk inside this temple, you just all the time. You turn your head around on the left, on the right, on the sky, everywhere. You just lose yourself and lose your mind.
So beautiful.
And you can really pass hours inside this temple, not really knowing it.
Yes. Yeah, you really lose the perception of time passing. Okay, we can go on.
This is the main tower on the right.
Yeah, you see these trees, really gigantic, eating up, swallowing almost this temple. And actually, when the first European archaeologists arrived here, they were French actually, and it was in the 19th century. They found all the temples eaten up by the jungle, and so it was really fascinating to see that. And yeah, I don't know how much time we have. Maybe we can just have a look, let's say 10 more minutes, we can have a look at some other temples built by Jayavarman VII. This is the Banteik Day. It's
devoted to the Buddha himself, so devoted to the principle of enlightenment.
Yeah, liberation from suffering. So we'll just go through the some pictures to have an idea of the temple. Yeah,
a taste of it.
Yeah, taste of it. Preakan, it's another beautiful temple. This is connected to compassion, the quality of compassion, which again is a way to get rid of suffering.
The principle is Avalokiteshvara, which is the Bodhisattva I told you about, and this is actually a citadel and a university. It is not only a temple, it is a citadel, and where people were studying everything about the sacred science, arts, mathematics, geometry,
so it was
the sky and the planets. It was everything.
Yeah, like a university. Yeah. Of those days.
More than 2,000 priests and teachers were living here, and really it was completely covered in also the other Jayavarman VII monuments were covered. The main hall were covered in gold and gems. It was very, very rich. Here you can see some apsaras, the heavenly dancers, which were small spirituals being going around the temples and the house of gods. And here you have many other smaller shrines dedicated to all the divinities and spirits of all the past religions. So here you could freely devote yourself to animism, to Hinduism, Buddhism.
And here you can see the Bayon. It's another very well-known temple, and it's really it's my favorite, I have to say, together with Angkor Wat. And it's really another amazing temple. And again, here it's really a temple where you can lose, you know, the sense of time. You can lose your mental part, your rational part, when you wander around this temple.
Many times you also lose the sense of space, because all the temples are symmetrical in each of the four sides. So you just walk around and you really cannot find again the entrance where you were entered, and you just
it looks a bit like a mountain temple with all the faces of the Bodhisattva and all around looking at you. And so while you walk around this temple and you are always confronted with these different faces, it's really like a labyrinth. You really lose your sense of
also
rationality.
It is symmetrical, and every corridor runs all along the temple. So you have many gates and gates and gates and pillars, and as you can see from this picture, you just lose yourself, or you have too many corridors, and walking these corridors is like walking through a Stargate.
And of course
you just
and the energy of the temple is so high. It's one of the highest in vibrations, and you feel this, you know, and so it's an amazing journey inside yourself, first of all, really inside our essence.
This is the only temple where you can see bas-reliefs dedicated to the people. All other temples were dedicated about the kings and about the divinities. This is the only temple, and it is the main state temple of Jayavarman VII. He was Buddhism, so he devoted his main temple to the normal people, to people which are suffering, and people who is in need of his help.
In fact, he cared a lot about his people, and he also built many hospitals, many hospitals.
102 hospitals all around the kingdom. He was the first, and also he built roads and homes for pilgrims,
for travelers,
to have shelter for them.
You see how well constructed those towers are, you know, with all the pillars. And
this is a very high tower and very big. I still don't understand how he built it, even if I am an architect. Really, it is empty inside. It is hollow, so it is a very complex structure with different side towers around the main one.
You see all the faces as we were speaking. So you see all these faces all around, you know, while you walk, and
they just stun yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Stun you.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. And they convey the message of compassion again, and this message is spread all around the place, all around the kingdom. So by being so repetitive, you know, you get the message, of course. And so it's a place that really opens up your heart. So if you go there and you meditate, it's really a place that will open up your heart, because that's is the essence of the Buddhism, is the opening of our heart. It's our center. And again, here we find some kind of comparison, similarity with the Egyptians, even if the age is so different. But the roots of Hinduism it also dates back to a very old time. And the Egyptians were talking about the intelligence of the heart. And again, here we find this kind of intelligence, which is the most important, the one we have to reach. And this temple is really about reaching the intelligence of our heart and speaking through our heart. And so for this reason, it's so important to go to Angkor. A passage to Angkor is, in our opinion, so important. So I think we will leave you with this message, hoping that one day you will manage to go and visit Angkor, because it's really a place worth seeing. And it's one of those places where you would go again and again, because it really touches you profoundly. And so thanking you for watching us. Of course, you can write to us if you have any comments or maybe any questions. We will be glad to answer. You can write in this chat or more privately. And
if you want, we are organizing a tour together with Megalithomania here at Angkor for the February 2021.
And you
in
can,
English, of course.
It will be in English, and so you can email us if you would like some more information. So bye for now, and let's meet again in a week's time. And we will tell you before through our Facebook group, Bridges of Light International, the topic we will choose for next week. And bye for now.
Bye.
And have a wonderful week. Love and light.